Humans didn't rise to the top of the food chain because we're the biggest. We're clearly not. Size isn't what won. So why are we on top? Because we're basically the giga nerds of the animal world. Which brings me to a fun little experiment. Can brains overpower brawn? And just how ridiculously strong could a human become if you combined modern science with absolutely zero ethical restraint? To answer that, we're using this beautiful specimen as our test subject. His name is Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Don't worry about Kevin. Kevin has no emotions and Kevin cannot feel pain. First, let's talk about how Kevin was made. Yes, I know, it's rude to say, but Kevin is genetically modified, a true GMO disaster. He was built using the sharpest tools in genetic engineering. His genes, and no, not the denim kind, have been optimized from the ground up for maximum force production. As a result, Kevin has denser bones, stronger muscle tissue, and faster muscle recovery than any normal human alive. Think steroids, but hardwired into him from day one. And speaking of steroids, what kind of deranged scientist would I be if I didn't immediately flood Kevin's body with suspiciously dangerous synthetic hormones? Back in the late 1930s, the first steroid was developed by a German scientist trying to treat hypogonadism, or low testosterone, which naturally spiraled into all kinds of ugly experimentation. Hello, Kevin. Then, by around the 1960s, some countries were handing steroids to Olympic athletes like they were breath mints, which is eventually why they got banned. Fast forward to today, and the buffet of performance enhancers is bigger, stronger, and in some cases, comically illegal. But since this is all theoretical, we have access to the full menu. Eat up. Most steroids are basically just copies of testosterone, and this one is no exception. It's going to amplify the testosterone already in Kevin's system, which means, yes, side effects later, but also bigger muscles and sturdier bones. That immediately makes Kevin about 20% stronger than he was a moment ago. But come on, those are beginner gains. Look at him, absolutely embarrassing. For the drugs to actually do their job, and I'm talking about the steroids, not hemorrhoids, Kevin needs to train, and not just random gym nonsense either. We're training for pure strength. That means heavy weight as much as he can move for about 5 to 8 reps. Hello, Kevin. We also want to focus mostly on compound lifts, the big movements that hit the largest muscle groups: legs, chest, back, squats, bench press, rows. Those are the money makers. Because strength isn't just about how much force your muscles can produce, it's also about coordination and leverage. The better your body gets at combining muscle groups efficiently, the more weight you can move. These lifts teach Kevin how to use his entire body as one machine instead of a bunch of disconnected parts. All right, Kevin, into the gym beyond time with you. And while you're in there, follow the program exactly. Eat your vegetables and hail protein and sleep like it's your full-time job. The gym beyond time does have a kitchen and beds, by the way. Otherwise, it would just be a concrete prison. No, Kevin, not 70 years, idiot. After all that, Kevin comes out roughly 50% stronger than where he started. I could have left him in longer, sure, but without changing anything major about the plan. Most of the biggest improvements are going to happen in the early years anyway. Don't panic, we are nowhere near finished. The average person can only consciously use about 40% of their total muscular capability. That's because the body has built-in neural limiters designed to stop you from ripping yourself apart. For example, when you kick something, your brain doesn't want you snapping your own shin in half. And yes, this is real. In 2006, a mother fought off a 700-pound polar bear to protect her children and walked away with relatively minor injuries. In 2019, a teenager lifted a car off his neighbor. In 1982, a woman in her late 50s lifted a vehicle weighing almost 2 tons and held it up for 5 full minutes. In 2013, another car lifting incident, this time a Jeep, was hoisted to save a 75-year-old man. These people weren't bodybuilders, they were normal humans suddenly accessing far more strength than they're usually allowed to use. Most people sit around that 40% mark. With regular training, that can climb to around 65%, which means that even after years in the gym and all the steroids in the world, Kevin is still only operating at maybe 65% of what his muscles are physically capable of doing. To keep things conservative anyway. So those little neurological safety locks in Kevin's skull, they need to go. Unfortunately, you can't just pry neural inhibitors out with a wrench, and surgery isn't really an option either. You can't just delete a pathway and call it a day. But we can temporarily shut those limiters down with chemistry. A cocktail of adrenaline, cortisol, and endorphins can force the human body into emergency mode, letting it access basically 100% of its muscular output. So now, Kevin is juiced to the gills, expertly trained, well-fed, fully recovered, and running on a heroic amount of adrenaline. That means he finally has full access to the monstrous muscle potential he was genetically designed to have. Welcome to Side Effect Corner. Possible side effects of steroids and adrenaline abuse include insomnia, nerve damage, being an enormous whiny diaper baby, acne that scars, acne that doesn't scar, acne that just exists to spite you, shrinking of the family jewels, impotence, gynecomastia, yeah, you can look that one up yourself, baldness, liver disease, shortness of breath, anxiety, constant sweating, abdominal pain, headaches, high blood pressure, and of course, the possibility that your bones and ligaments turn into shattered chalk from massive overexertion. This has been our first and hopefully only trip to Side Effect Corner. Join us next time when we ask the important question, just how empty is Kevin's giant stupid skull? But we're not here for longevity, we're here for spectacle, and Kevin isn't feeling any of this anyway, right Kevin? Besides, we haven't even started adding cybernetic upgrades. The first obvious option is an exoskeleton. There are already multiple versions of exoskeleton technology used to help people with neurological or physical impairments move again. There are also designs intended for military applications and industrial labor. Some of these systems can amplify strength by something like 20 to 1. In theory, a 100-pound load could feel more like 5 pounds to the wearer, which is utterly absurd and would be an enormous gain for Kevin. Unfortunately, there's a catch. The suit itself has a weight limit of about 200 pounds, which, to be fair, I would absolutely take added to my max lift, thank you very much. But why stop with wearing the suit when we could become the suit? Enter advanced prosthetics. With improvements in robotics, material science, and prosthetic engineering, artificial limbs could eventually outperform natural ones. They could be tougher thanks to materials like titanium or carbon fiber. They could be purpose-built to output more force than biological limbs. They could be custom-tuned for specific tasks. And with enough sensors and feedback systems, they could even reduce the chance of accidental self-damage or collateral damage. The problem is, if we swap Kevin's enhanced natural limbs for prosthetics, we lose the benefits of all that glorious genetic engineering. So instead, I have a different plan. We're not going to replace his limbs to make him stronger. We're going to reinforce him so he can survive his own strength. That means the bones get upgraded. Titanium bones. Titanium bones. Now, we can't replace the entire skeleton with titanium because Kevin still needs bone marrow to make red blood cells, but certain bones, especially smaller or fragile ones like the clavicle and parts like the knuckles, can absolutely be swapped out. That turns his fists into lethal hardware and protects some of the body's weakest structural points. Less chance of injury, better force transfer, faster recovery, more efficiency. And speaking of durability, Kevin is now insanely strong, but if he ever got into a real fight, his defenses would still be lacking. This is where we crank the nonsense up another level. Nanobots. Tiny machines, mostly imagined for medical use, small enough to be injected into the body. Normally, they'd be used to target diseases or assist the immune system in dealing with things it struggles to handle on its own. But they could also be used to repair muscle fibers directly. You see where this is going. That gives Kevin something very close to a healing factor. Training damage gets repaired faster. Real combat damage gets repaired faster. Muscle recovery accelerates. Future gains come quicker. He probably shouldn't depend on them emotionally, but physically they'd be doing a lot of heavy lifting. So let's total this up. An average person can consciously use about 40% of their total muscular capability. That's because the body has built-in neural limiters designed to stop you from ripping yourself apart. With proper training and diet, that rises to around 65%. Steroids can push performance higher, roughly around 85%. Add in hysterical strength through adrenaline, and now we're talking 100%. Then we remember Kevin is not normal. He's genetically engineered, so that baseline gets boosted by at least another 30%, putting him somewhere north of 175% compared to the average man. Reinforcing key bones increases structural integrity and durability, so we can bump that to around 195%. Then nanobots accelerate repair and muscle development, pushing Kevin to a frankly absurd 215% of the strength potential of an average human. So imagine two friends. One weighs 442 pounds, and the other is just an average guy. Under ideal conditions, that average guy might be able to lift his 442-pound friend. Kevin